Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Eloisa Ramos, and we are reading the Course in Miracles, the text, and I'm joined by my daughter, Sonia. Hi, Sonia, and my friend, Teresa. Hi, Teresa. And we are studying, let's see, chapter 13, which is the guiltless world. And we are starting section 5, which is the two emotions. Let's see, and I just kind of want to review the previous sections a little bit, just guiltlessness and invulnerability. Okay, so they go together. I'm sorry, guiltlessness and invulnerability, they go together. So, and of course, the Son of God is guiltless, and therefore the Son of God is invulnerable. And then we had that section on fear of redemption, which was a really good section. Let's see. So it really talked about how we think that we're afraid of all this fearful stuff in the world, but that's really just like a cover for the fear of redemption that's underneath it. And then the last one we worked on was the function of time. And let's see. So the function of time, what it said is that basically the now has no meaning to the ego, because basically the ego is, it's all past, and the past is not, it's interpretation. So it's not truth, but when we look at it, we want to make it as if that was truth about, what we are, and about what the world is, about what God is, about, basically it's all our past learning. It's what we taught ourselves. And this is a course where we realize, oh, I'm wrong about everything, because everything in the past is an interpretation that I made up, and that's why I forgive it, because it's not the way I think it is. And so here we are, the two emotions. Okay, so anything before we start? No. All right, so let's go into that. And paragraph 1. I have said you have but two emotions, love and fear. One is changeless, but continually exchanged, being offered by the eternal to the eternal. In this exchange, it is extended, for it increases as it is given. The other has many forms, for the content of individual illusions differs greatly. Yet they have one thing in common: they are all insane. They are made of sights that are not seen and sounds that are not heard. They make up a private world that cannot be shared, for they are meaningful only to their maker, and so they have no meaning at all. In this world, their maker moves alone, for only he perceives them. Okay, so this is referring a little bit to what I was talking about when we look at the past. And when we think about, what we remember in our memories, and, maybe we like to reminisce about the past, and we start sharing stories about, what happened when we were little, and this and that. And that makes up a private world. Okay, because, and it's interesting that when you do start sharing some of those past memories, like with a brother or a sibling, that you won't see it the same way. It'll be like, oh no, I remember it differently. This is how I remember it. So that's why it's saying here in line 8 that they are meaningful only to their maker. And so they have no meaning at all. Because what's interesting is that our memory is very subjective. And of course, it's not accurate, but when you really begin to look at what you do remember and then what you don't, what you've left out of it, or things that you have forgotten, and then all of a sudden you remember, you can really see how subjective it is. And so that's the line 9. In this world, their maker moves alone, for only he perceives them. Let's see if I can. So because we interpret, what happens in the world, it's not that there's actual meaning in what happens in the world. It's that we give it the meaning through interpretation. And that's what we store as memories. It's the meaning that we gave it. And of course, when to give it meaning, we end up judging. We end up maybe projecting guilt. We end up perceiving things in a very biased manner. So it's no wonder that, when people are investigating like crime scenes or a car accident, they have to try to get different witnesses to try to kind of get a handle of maybe what really happened in terms of, the facts, which cars were involved, which direction were they coming from, who was the one that actually hit the other, that kind of thing, because it's all just different points of view from different angles. So let's see. But the other thing that it's saying here is that all of that personal world is really made out of fear. And that's why it's private and personal. But love is changeless, and continually exchanged, so it can be shared. And it increases as it is given. So those are the qualities of love. So that's why in love there's no loss, because everything you give just increases. And it's offered by the eternal to the eternal. So it's a recognition of the eternal nature that we share. Whereas otherwise, we're looking at a private self with a private brain, with a private memory, with a private individual body, personality, that kind of a thing. Past experience that's going to shape, who I am today. That's what I believe I am, basically. Okay. Okay, number 2.
Each one peoples his world with figures from his individual past, and it is because of this that private worlds do differ. Yet the figures that he sees were never real, for they are made up only of his reactions to his brothers, and do not include their reactions to him. Therefore, he does not see he made them, and that they are not whole. For these figures have no witnesses, being perceived in one separate mind only. Sounds like we're all narcissistic in a way. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
that's what this is telling me essentially. I mean, it does not include their reactions to him, only his reactions to his brothers.
Yeah, it's like a closed loop, right? So there's no feedback so in other words, I'm always right. Okay, because in my past, I'm always right, because I don't allow any information that would say, no, you're not. There's a different way to look at this. I think that's why up here it says that it's basically that even though the form changes, it's all basically the same. It's all insane. In line 5 up there. Yet they have one thing in common, they're all insane. Precisely because it's an incomplete picture, right? And therefore obviously not whole, like line 3 says. Yeah. Okay, number 3.
It is through these strange and shadowy figures that the insane relate to their insane world. For they see only those who remind them of these images, and it is to them that they relate. Thus do they communicate with those who are not there, and it is they who answer them. And no one hears their answer save him who called upon them, and he alone believes they answered him. Projection makes perception, and you cannot see beyond it. Again and again you have attacked your brother because you saw in him a shadow figure in your private world. And thus it is, you must attack yourself first, for what you attack is not in others. Its only reality is in your own mind, and by attacking others, you are literally attacking what is not there. Wow. I like line 6. Again and again you have attacked your brother, because you saw in him a shadow figure in your private world.
And you know, that plays in with the definition of forgiveness that the Course offers, because remember that it says we forgive our brother for what he did not do. Okay, and I didn't realize that that could be misinterpreted. It's not that we forgive him for what he failed to do, okay, is that we forgive him because we are misinterpreting him as doing something that we brought with us and projected onto him and saw as if he did it when he never did. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's what this is explaining here. That's what projection is. So it's almost like a filter. It's almost like our eyes and our body senses have a filtering mechanism that's projecting the past onto it, so that there's almost a barrier between our brother and what is actually reality in our brother, and all of the past stuff that we bring with us and that we project on top of that. And so then we only see our projection, we don't actually see reality there. And so perception is subjective. That's why the Course says that we made perception to see what we want to see. You see, because it's really just imagination. And so we can, you know, imagine whatever we want, but it's not true. But we're going to believe that it's true. That's why there's insanity in there. Because it's distortion. It's a whole distortion of reality. Yes, and see line 2, for they see only those who remind them of these past images, and it is to them that they relate. So somewhere else, of course, talks about how we make an ego for ourselves and for others. And that's what we see in our interactions with someone. We don't actually see them as they are. We just see their ego that we made of them, which is what we think they are. Okay, so I'm going to relate to him based on whatever I think he is. Oh, you know, maybe she's wearing a designer bag, so I'm going to relate to her like she's into, you know, fashion, or into, you know, into luxury or whatever. So I'm going to try to relate to her in that way, only because I judged her to be something based on my own interpretation of what I think she is. So let's see. Yeah, and it uses the word shadow figures. That comes up, quite a bit in the course in line 6. Again and again, have you attacked your brother because you saw in him a shadow figure in your private world? So these are shadow figures that we bring with us. You could say that it's they're unhealed past grievances. And because they're unhealed, they have a way of blocking our awareness of love's presence in our brother. And so what we see is just this attack thing. And thus it is you must attack yourself first, for what you attack is not in others. Yes, so because we are perceiving fear from my brothers, or I'm perceiving threat from my brothers, because I'm bringing in these shadow figures that are grievances that have not been forgiven. So I'm going to be perceiving, I'm going to be projecting guilt, sin, fear, and when I do that, remember what it said was that guiltlessness is invulnerability. So once I project guilt and sin and fear, I'm actually attacking myself first and making myself vulnerable. And that's why I feel unsafe around others, because I'm bringing all this stuff with me from the past that I have not forgiven, and then I'm projecting it onto now, and it's not there, but it seems to be there for me anyway. Yeah, no, line 8, it's only realities in your mind. And by attacking others, you're literally attacking what is not there. So our reactions to others will be unfounded. We're going to, I mean, yeah, we're not going to know what the heck we're doing, because we're reacting to things that are not there. Yeah. Okay. And you know that any emotional outburst or any emotional reaction is going to be based on love or fear. Those are the two emotions. So anything that's not loving is going to be coming from fear. So any kind of emotional reaction is going to be coming from the past as fear if it's not loving. So that pretty much covers everything, every single kind of upset, even excitement, even positive emotions that we're used to thinking of as good are still fear-based if they're not, because they're not coming from love. If they're coming from our past, they're still, a form of specialness, which would imply guilt in there. Okay, number 4. The delusional can be very destructive, for they do not recognize they have condemned themselves. They do not wish to die, yet they will not let condemnation go. And so they separate into their private worlds, where everything is disordered and where what is within appears to be without. Yet what is within they do not see, for the reality of their brothers they cannot recognize. Yes, so to be delusional is to, let's see, is to see everything as if it was coming from the outside. So everyone's condemning me, I'm the victim, I'm the poor sweet baby, I'm the one that gets picked on all the time, the world's unfair, it's, you're always betraying me, talking behind my back, or, you're being rude to me, or all of that. Okay. But I'm not seeing that I'm doing that, because I'm projecting it all outside of me. And so, and so they do not wish to die, yet they don't let condemnation go, because the mind that is projecting is, you could say, is in survival mode, and it has bought into the idea that the ego says that that to be innocent is to condemn others. So in other words, the way that the ego thought system tries to deal with guilt is by putting it outside, in terms of, I'm going to condemn you, and therefore you're the one that's guilty, and God's not going to punish me or kill me, but God's going to kill you because you're the guilty one. That's why it says they do not wish to die. So it's a survival thing where we think, oh my God, God's going to punish me, God's going to kill me, because I'm holding all this guilt. So I'm going to make sure that all of that I project onto somebody else. That way I can have some sense of being safe. Because the belief is that God is a punishing God, not a loving God, but a fearful God. So once I'm in fear, then I think that, oh yes, God is, of course, going to be fearful, because that's the wrong mind. And I'm going to be identified with that wrong mind. So everything's going to be fearful. And we lose the awareness of love, and of our true essential nature, as a creation of God that is only loving. Okay. Yeah. And of course that we can't see that in our brothers either, because we can't see it in ourselves. It's all blocked off by all that fear. And that's why the Course says that it's for the miracle worker, their one responsibility is to release fear, because we made it. God didn't make that emotion. And so we need to let that go, and forgive that past, all those past grievances, so that the mind can be healed. Okay, number 5.
You have but 2 emotions, yet in your private world you react to each of them as though it were the other. For love cannot abide in a world apart, where when it comes it is not recognized. If you see your own hatred as your brother, you are not seeing him. Everyone draws nigh unto what he loves and recoils from what he fears. And you react with fear to love and draw away from it. Yet fear attracts you, and believing it is love, you call it to yourself. Your private world is filled with figures of fear you have invited into it, and all the love your brothers offer you, you do not see. So it's like because of that filter, like you were saying before, that we only react to the egos that we perceive as others, the self-image, not really seeing them, the reality of them.
Yeah.
That would be the confusion, because we couldn't recognize that love. Is that right?
Yeah, because there's a very strong issue with trust. So there's a lot of distrust, you see, because in the private world, fear seems to be the reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you perceive someone that's loving, you're not going to perceive that as, let's see, you're going to be afraid of that because you're going to see that as fake. I mean, or not lasting, or oh yeah, you're being nice now, but later you're gonna screw me over or something like that. There's a very strong negative perception of of people and of the world, and everybody's just out to get each other. So you got to watch out and be on guard. And there's so much of um, that the love that can show up for them is not even really recognized. They can't even really perceive it as love. It's let's see. Yeah, so that's line 7. Your private world is filled with figures of fear. You have invited into it, and all the love your brother offers you, you do not see, because we will misinterpret it to not believe it. Because basically, if we make fear real, we're going to make love unreal, because they can't both be real. So, at the same time, anyway, and we can go back and forth, but yeah, and then we interpret love to be more like, oh, a preference, or like, oh, I love to go out on Friday night and do this, and this, or oh, my favorite, I love ice cream, so we make love part of the interactions between bodies, rather than the love that is eternally shared by eternal spirit. Yeah. Okay, number 6.
As you look with open eyes upon your world, it must occur to you that you have withdrawn into insanity. You see what is not there, and you hear what makes no sound. Your manifestations of emotions are the opposite of what the emotions are. You communicate with no one, and you are as isolated from reality as if you were alone in all the universe. In your madness, you overlook reality completely, and you see only your own split mind everywhere you look. God calls you, and you do not hear, for you are preoccupied with your own voice, and the vision of Christ is not in your sight, for you look upon yourself alone. I'd say that's encapsulated in the last 2 sentences. God calls you and you do not hear, for you're preoccupied with your own split mind and your own voice.
Yeah.
It's like we talked about before in other contexts about the world really is a mirror because all we see is ourselves.
Yeah, so it's like a bubble, it's like living in a little bubble. Um, and the more closed in the loop, the more, what is that? The more specific and individual that bubble becomes, and the more lonely, the individual, because they can't really relate or connect to anyone else. Let's see, line 4, you communicate with no one, and you are isolated from reality as if you were alone in all the universe. because, you know, a closed-in bubble is a closed-in perception. So it's almost like tunnel vision. And we only see bits and pieces of what we want to see, so that that will support our existing belief system, and it's closed to anything. So it is like a filter, so that the belief system stays intact. So we protect the ego thought system from change, so we don't change our mind. Yes, so it is, you know, withdrawing into insanity. You can think of maybe some of the, you know, because my mom had Alzheimer's. So you could almost kind of see that narrowing down of perception, and, you know, even the peripheral vision gets very isolated, you know, and they're not able to take in a wide spectrum. So everything just becomes really limited and narrow and more disjointed. So of course it's not going to make sense, you know, and it's going to be fearful. Yeah. Okay, number 7. Little child, would you offer this to your father? For if you offer it to yourself, you are offering it to him, and he will not return it, for it is unworthy of you, because it is unworthy of him. Yet he would release you from it and set you free. His sane answer tells you what you have offered yourself is not true, but his offering to you has never changed. You who know not what you do can learn what insanity is and look beyond it. It is given you to learn how to deny insanity and come forth from your private world in peace. You will see all that you denied in your brother because you denied it in yourself. For you will love them, and by drawing nigh unto them, you will draw them to yourself, perceiving them as witnesses to the reality you share with God. I am with them as I am with you, and we will draw them from their private worlds. For as we are united, so would we unite with them. The Father welcomes all of us in gladness, and gladness is what we should offer him. For every son of God is given you, to whom God gave himself. And it is God whom you must offer them, to recognize his gift to you. Okay. Yes. So in other words, this little bubble of a world that's private is not it's not something that we can offer to God, because let's see, for if you offer it to yourself, would you offer this to your father? For if you offer it to yourself, you are offering it to him, and he will not return it. So that almost reminds me of the idea of asking, you know, for the wish for specialness. So it's almost like the more specific and the more narrow your little bubble in world is, the more your wish for specialness is given. We've made it so special now that it's literally almost suffocating us, you know, because it's so small and constricted. And God can't give us that, because God is all expansion. It's all love. It's infinite. So let's see. 4, yet he would release you from it and set you free, because we're literally imprisoning ourselves in our mind, in this, with our perception being so narrow and fearful. So his sane answer, which is the Holy Spirit, tells you what you have offered yourself is not true. So the Holy Spirit, even when we are experiencing this, I don't know what you would actually, delusion, even when we're experiencing this delusion, Holy Spirit is still part of our mind. And that's the part that says, wait a minute, that's not true. Okay. Don't believe, don't believe that. It's not true. Um, and it's also offering us another way, which is the way of love, which is the way of forgiveness, which is, remembering that we are the decision maker. So we can open up the mind to love, if we want to. So let's see. You who know not what you do can learn what insanity is and look beyond it. So part of it is that we get used to it. It's a little bit like the idea of the frog that, is put in a pot of water, and then the temperature just goes slowly. You get used to it. And you just stay there until you get cooked. But that's kind of like the ego thought system, We're just so used to looking at the world insanely, that we need to have, we don't know what we're doing. We're literally just letting ourselves get, boiled to death in that pot of water like the frog, because we don't jump out. So this is saying, you do not know what you do, but you can learn. Okay, you're in a pot of water, jump out of there. You don't have to take the heat, stop the suffering, get out of there. There was something that Ken Wapnick said. I was trying to remember. He said something like, "Oh yeah, well, the way out of the desert is to just leave the desert. It's the same thing with a frog. The way out of the heat is to jump out of the pot." So, so it is giving you to learn how to deny insanity. And I'd have to say that, it's a very interesting process, because the forgiveness piece is a real critical part to it, because we have to suspend judgment. We're used to looking at insanity, whether it's something going on in the world, or whether it's, my brother or my son saying things to me that are just like, whoa, okay, where did that come from? Okay. So we have to be able to just look at it without judging it, and just see, okay, um, this is not what they are. Okay, this is not the truth of what we are as God created us. And so it's a distortion. And we want to be able to deny that insanity, to be able to see past it and not get stuck, because it's very fearful, when we see people that are acting strangely, or maybe that have mental illness. A lot of the homeless can be, yelling and screaming and all of that. And that can be very, very fearful. So it's really about being able to see that they're not their behavior, and that we're not our behavior either. So that it makes it easier to forgive ourselves and others. Yes, so you will see all that you denied in your brother because you denied it in yourself. So that's the projection. That's why we see it outside of us, so it's important to say, to recognize that, oh yeah, it's a mirror, like you said, Teresa. Okay, so I'm seeing this person yelling and screaming, walking by themselves in the middle of the street. Okay, not in their right mind. Okay, well, that's me. Hello. There's a part of me that has to be like that too. So I want to offer love to that part of myself, and be kind, and generous, and not like start yelling and swearing and honking the horn and trying to get them off, out of the street, that kind of a thing. So yes, for 9, for you will love them, and by drawing nigh unto them, you will draw them to yourself. So it's about seeing that, despite of the appearances, the love is their essential nature there. Yeah, so that's line 12. For every son of God is given you, to whom God gave himself, and is God, whom you must offer them. And of course, God is love. So, to offer love is to recognize that God is with us and God is within us. And that's how we recognize God's gift to us, which is the same love. So, okay, number 8.
Vision depends on light. You cannot see in darkness. Yet in darkness, in the private world of sleep, you see in dreams, although your eyes are closed. And it is here that what you see, you made. But let the darkness go, and all you made will no longer see. For sight of it depends upon denying vision. Yet from denying vision, it does not follow you cannot see. But this is what denial does, for by it you accept insanity, believing you can make a private world and rule your own perception. Yet for this, light must be excluded. Dreams disappear when light has come and you can see. Okay.
Okay, so the way to sort of unravel this is to really look at what denial is. Denying vision, denying, what does denial do? Well, think about denial. Okay, so in order to deny something, you have to believe
What is being denied? I have to acknowledge. Well,
you have to deny the reality of what you're denying, right? Yeah, so you basically have to accept a lie.
Yeah.
Okay, and so if I accept the lie, okay, there's still a part of me that made the decision to deny the reality, that recognized the reality in order to choose to block that away and say, no, I'm going to believe something other than reality. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to deny, that's why it says here, line 6, yet from denying vision, it does not follow that you cannot see. Okay, we still have the ability to see. We still have the Holy Spirit vision within us. Okay, the only thing is that we've hid it away in a place in our mind where we believe that we can put it out of our mind. Okay, and that's what projection is. We throw everything, we think that thoughts can leave the mind, and now, oh, look, they're separate from me. There's this whole world, and that's people, and that's not me. No, this is me, and everything else that I see, that I perceive as separate from me, is not me. So that's how I make this split. And that's how I can deny that everything that I see is in my mind. Okay. But even though I deny it, it's still there. Okay. So, okay, 7, but this is what denial does. For by it, you accept insanity. Okay. Believing you can make a private world and rule your own perception. So that's how I make my little bubble. Okay, by projecting everything and saying that's not mine, I'm denying that that's in my mind, and I make a little bubble and I accept the insanity in my little bubble. I just made a private world and I can rule it with my own perception. I can see whatever I want to see. You know, da 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 da. Ignorance is bliss, kind of a thing. Okay. Yet for this, light must be excluded. And dreams disappear when light has come and you can see. So if I exclude light, what I'm left with is just shadows and shadow figures and darkness and fear. So that bubble becomes very, very fearful now because it's so, you know, disjointed and it's all nonsense basically. And so, okay, but see line 5, but okay, if I decide, okay, God help me, this is too scary. I need help. I want to let go of the darkness. Okay, but let the darkness go, and all you made you will no longer see. Okay, so that's calling the Holy Spirit. So that's why we give whatever the grievance is or whatever the suffering that we experience is. We want to look at that as an error and give it to the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit is the vision that brings in the light that dispels the darkness of that little bubble that we made, and it opens it up to the light, opens the mind to the light. And then we begin to recognize, oh, of course, everything that I see is a projection of my mind, because my mind is the only causal level. And then my mind starts to heal, because now I'm not projecting everything. I've let go of projection, and now I'm willing to look at the error of projection and accept that, okay, everything is really just a projection of my mind. And those thoughts that are fearful are not real, because that's what holy vision is telling me, because it's bringing in the light and it's dispelling. The mind can now can discern that those thoughts are not real, and that's the healing that's the miracle that vision brings. Vision depends on light. That's why the Course says that miracles can only be seen in light. That's one of the lessons. Yeah. So we have to, open the mind to the Holy Spirit, so that the Holy Spirit brings us the vision with the light that then is the miracle that dispels the darkness. And heals the mind from the fear that we've held on to. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And that's the dream. That's the dream of fear. Line 9, dreams disappear when light has come and you can see. Okay. Number 9.
Do not seek vision through your eyes, for you made your way of seeing that you might see in darkness, and in this you are deceived. Beyond this darkness, and yet still within you, is the vision of Christ, who looks on all in light. Your vision comes from fear, as his from love, and he sees for you as your witness to the real world. He is the Holy Spirit's manifestation, looking always on the real world and calling forth its witnesses and drawing them to you. He loves what he sees within you, and he would extend it. And he will not return unto the Father until he has extended your perception even unto him. And their perception is no more, for he has returned you to the Father with him. So I guess basically it's saying that when we look through our eyes, truth is all we see is darkness and we are deceived. It is when we look with Christ, we see with light and love.
Yes, so seeing through the eyes is what we made, because we made the body, the ego made the body. Because that's how we see what we want to see, not what is reality. Okay, so we made the eyes to see in darkness, meaning to see in a dream world, to see illusion, to see what is not there. And obviously, that's not really seeing, because there's nothing there. What are you seeing? That's not seeing. Okay, so so that's why it says, in this you are deceived. Okay, you can't see in darkness. There's nothing there. But beyond this darkness, and still within you, is the vision of Christ, who looks on all in light. And so, of course, these are the two emotions, right? So what we made, quote unquote, vision, which is not vision, comes from fear. And Christ's vision comes from love. So, and so what you could say then is that, and he sees for you. So when we're able to see someone beyond the appearances that would be fearful, then we're actually seeing through Christ, through the Christ mind, which is our true self, which looks with the light of love. And that's holy vision. So, and that's witnessing to the real world. Of course, talks about the real world. And I mean, I've had glimpses of that, at times in my experience. So, yeah, it's a way of seeing everything as one in truth and as completely loving. So, so number 5, I kind of like what it's saying here is that that Christ, he is the Holy Spirit's manifestation. So you could almost say, the historical Jesus was the manifestation of the Holy Spirit, although he, wait a minute, he left the Holy Spirit for us, to remember the Christ, which is what he was, which is the Son of God. So it's the memory of the Son of God as our true self. Looking always on the real world and calling forth its witnesses and drawing them to you. So the world can witness to both reality and unreality, because depending on what emotion we choose, love or fear, it's going to determine what we see in the world. Does that make sense? You could say that emotions are the filters that color the appearances that we see in the world. And so the real world can only be seen with love. So, yeah, and then the Christ that is seeing that as our true self loves what he sees and would extend it. And let's see, he will not return unto the Father until he has extended your perception even unto him. So the perception then becomes so pure and so loving and that it becomes almost, the separation there between knowledge and perception is almost, God takes the last step. So, but see, and then there's no perception anymore. So line 8, and their perception is no more, for he has returned you to the Father with him. That's a return to knowledge. So that would be the end of the separation, because the perception was the first split in the separation. So that would be the end of perception there. Okay, number 10. You have but two emotions, and one you made, and one was given you. Each is a way of seeing, and different worlds arise from their different sights. See through the vision that is given you, for through Christ's vision, he beholds himself. And seeing what he is, he knows his Father. Beyond your darkest dreams, he sees God's guiltless Son within you, shining in perfect radiance that is undimmed by your dreams. And this you will see as you look with him, for his vision is his gift of love to you. Give him of the Father for you. Yes, so this last part sounds a little awkward, but it's let's see. And this you will see as you look with him, for his vision is his gift of love to you, given him of the Father for you. So so it's sharing what God gave us, which is the extension of love, which is what creation is. And so from Christ that received the God's gift as the recognition of being God's Son, that comes to us so that we can recognize that we are also the same, the Son of God, and loved dearly, obviously, by our Father, our Creator. And so as we look with the vision of Christ, we recognize the love that is, in our brothers, that is what we are, and that is what our Father gives us. So it's the same love. Yeah. Yeah. And so, the two emotions, one was made, that was the fear, and the one was given you. And because we made it, we're the ones that decide that, we don't want to, let's see, we decide that we don't want to see with it anymore, that we would rather choose love. And by practicing the forgiveness, I think that demonstrates that commitment to seeking the truth, which is the light. Our commitment has to be put into practice in order for let's see. So it's not just, kind of understanding the ideas of the course. It's making a commitment to the practice of the forgiveness piece of it, to be able to offer God to others, to be able to teach love, for that is what we are, to learn that. Okay, number 11.
The Holy Spirit is the light in which Christ stands revealed, and all who would behold him can see him, for they have asked for light. Nor will they see him alone, for he is no more alone than they are. Because they saw the Son, they have risen in him to the Father. And all this will they understand, because they looked within and saw beyond the darkness Christ in them, and recognized him. In the sanity of his vision, they looked upon themselves with love, seeing themselves as the Holy Spirit sees them. And with this vision of the truth in them came all the beauty of the world to shine upon them. It sounds like a poem. Yeah, it's a really pretty poem.
Yeah.
Yeah. It actually, in the last paragraph too, I was underlining given you, given, so it emphasizes given like 4 or 5 times, in the past, couple of things. And I kind of realized that it is given, it's not what we made. So we have to receive it. It's not something that we can like, what's the word? Like try to make happen, you know what I mean? Like it's
Not an achievement.
yeah, it's like just given. I mean, I don't no.
Yeah, it's not
I don't-
like let me set a goal. I'm gonna be more loving today. Okay.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like it's not like because I know like now like there's a big emphasis on like the whole growth, being a better person, I want to improve this, and this. I'm going to try to be more loving and more, yeah, like you're saying, more forgiving. But um, this is just really emphasizing that the vision is given you once you release all that you have made. So it's not a trying at all.
It's an undoing of
It's
what,
yeah. And so that's why in the last paragraph, um, that's how you can see the vision, is by letting it be given to you instead of trying to attain it. I think that was a really big thing for me because I kept trying to, you know, practice, the course, or like trying, effort, into like learning concepts, or trying to do this and that. But that's this it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It wasn't until I realized that there was one thing that David Hoffmeister said. He said that you don't understand the course, you have to apply the course, and then the understanding will come. So that was a really big switch that did not occur to me. So that's what reminded me of this. So anyway.
Yes, because it's only what we can practice that we can really experience. Do you see what I'm saying? And when we can experience it, then we can teach it and we can share it, because we have then integrated it, and it's not just a concept. So we can live it now, and we kind of have an idea of the process of what it takes to integrate it. And now it just becomes a natural thing. So it's not like the effort that you were saying. I have to remember, to do this and this and this and this. And I forgot, so I didn't do a good job. And so it's not the evaluation and the judgment. It's none of that. It's the undoing of all of that, which we have taught ourselves. So in a way, we have to unlearn what we learned, and also how we learned it. to just be open to receive what is given. Because otherwise we're going to want to take credit. We're going to want to turn it into an achievement, and then the ego gets in there. Because I make it mine now, rather than recognizing the Son, the love and the Son of God is an extension of what God is. So it can't be mine. I can't possess it, as a special individual thing. So, yeah. Yes, so line 2, and all who would behold him can see him, for they have asked for light. So that's the main thing. The main thing is that we, a lot of the lessons are, I want to see this differently. I'm asking for the light, help me to see this differently. Okay, because there's a part of me that recognizes it's distorted, and I want to change my mind. I want to see reality as it is, not as I am interpreting it. So that's kind of like that's the intention of it's the intention of wanting to heal the mind, because we recognize that the mind is not healed. There's insanity there, and we, it's fearful. So yeah. So okay, so that's the section. Let's see, the 2 emotions. Anything before we stop? Do you have any questions, Teresa? No? Are you sure?
I agree with Sonia. I think that last paragraph is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
And I think that one of the things that stuck out for me was, and I always paraphrase in my notes, but looking upon ourselves with love. It's like the whole key is, if we look beyond the darkness within and see the light, then we are, self-love is like the beginning.
Yes.
If we love ourselves, then it will flow.
Yes, and that's sanity.
Wow. Because I think a lot of people realize when they work with this course that it's not just about loving what's out there. It really is about loving what's in here, allowing God to show us how really beautiful and innocent we are.
Yes, because the forgiveness is by forgiving the external, we're actually forgiving the internal, because the external is a reflection of the internal. So we're not really forgiving anyone. It's always just the self. Yeah. That oneself, because I mean, it's a fragmentation of the oneself. So it's always the giving is always the receiving. So when we give forgiveness, we're always receiving it. Whether we think it's someone else or us, the end result of the forgiveness is that we're taking responsibility for that perception of separation, and we're making a decision for love, which is to let go of that perception of separation. Okay, so okay, so the next section is finding the present. Okay. All right, so unless there's anything else, I think we can stop here. All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining.